Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Triangle Hustle podcast. Today, we have two special guests, and I am very excited to have them. And many of you guys have seen these two special individuals at the NAWIC LA Association, along with other construction associations. They are very active, and what they have made and created is dearly to my heart. So I'm going to let these two amazing individuals introduce themselves to the podcast.
Thank you. My name is Valerie Valverie, and I'm the vice chair of Third Step Ministry.
Good afternoon. I'm Maria Camarillo. I'm the director of Third Step Ministry. I'm also the founder of Third Step Ministry, and I'm happy to be here.
And then, for those who don't know, Third Step Ministry is a non-profit organization that helps women heal themselves through recovery, and it's through addiction, healing, past traumas. And I really want to know more of how this all started.
So, to be perfectly honest, 25 years ago, I prayed and I wanted to sincerely ask the Lord to help me make a difference in the world. And I was already doing a lot of things. I was a social worker by profession, working with families, restoring families, strengthening families. My husband and I were also very involved in church ministry, but I didn't really feel that I was having an impact. And so that was all. I just said very simply, God, I'd like to make a difference. And I had forgotten about that prayer. A few months later, the idea of doing an event for women in recovery was presented to me. At first, it was an event that we were trying to put together for men in recovery. And so I was giving all my input because that's what I do. I just kind of give my opinion. But my expertise was mostly working with women. And the individual I was talking to, he said, well, Maria, why don't you do it? Do it for women. And I said, I stopped for a second because it just took me by surprise. And I said, okay, I'll do that. And so immediately I went to a couple of other family members and a few other women who were in recovery and tossed to them the idea about doing an event for women who had already made the decision to achieve recovery. So they were in some type of residential recovery program or outpatient recovery, and an event that would celebrate them in their decision to achieve recovery. And they were all in. They just jumped in and said, that sounds great. So very naively, we thought, okay, well, what do we need to put this together? And a family member donated a few, about $3,000, but it doesn't go very far when you're trying to do an event for, like think about a wedding, right? And so we thought, okay, we can't afford a lunch, we can't afford a dinner, so we'll do a tea. And so we'll invite ladies to attend a tea with coffee and dessert and that type of thing. But they gobbled up the chocolate fast, and the coffee was gone before we knew it. But what really impressed us was that their response. We had a woman who came in and gave an inspirational message of hope, of the idea that they can be redeemed through faith. And they responded. Even before she concluded her message, they wanted to come up and be prayed for and receive support. And so my sisters and I just looked at each other and said, we're on to something, And so that's really the first event that we did. And then year after year, we said we have to continue to do this. And so all year long, we would raise funds, we would recruit volunteers. That's how I met Valerie. And so that's essentially how this idea started. And of course, we've now been in existence for 24 years. And so over the last 13 years, I would say, we really got serious about becoming a nonprofit organization, getting our own 501c3, and putting a plan together about what we wanted to do besides and in addition to doing an event for women. I retired from my profession, and so I was able to now dedicate much more time to the organization.
And then Valerie, how did you just come across an ad for her event? Or how did you guys meet?
We had a mutual friend.
Okay.
And at the time, I was going into a women's recovery program through my church and just doing crafts and things like that with them. So our mutual friend said, "Oh, you two need to meet. You're kind of doing the same thing." So we met, and she explained to me about the event. What she didn't mention is that first event had about 50 women show up.
Mm-hmm.
And then as of since I've been involved for the past 20 years, there's been almost 600 women.
Wow.
So it has evolved, it has grown, and we enlist
Mm-hmm.
about 240 volunteers.
And what made you take that path? Or
Well, my husband and I were already doing recovery ministry at our church. We both come from a background of that, so we have a heart for that. And it was just a no-brainer. I met Maria. She said, "This is what we do. We have this event." I didn't quite fully get it. And so she said, "Why don't you come and just come and see?" And I said, "Okay." And so I went, I saw, and was quite overwhelmed by what they were doing. It was a huge reach. I was doing kind of a smaller reach going into the homes. She was doing the bigger reach, but wanting to develop people to go into the homes to do more personal touch and connection with the women. So that's how we met and partnered, and I've been with her ever since.
So yeah, about 19.
Almost, 19 years.
mm-hmm. Wow, it's amazing.
That's incredible. It's funny. I think when you say you are of the same mind, you see the need. You're doing it over here. You're doing it over here. And like we were saying earlier, you had a friend who says your friend should be her friend, so we can, maybe create a bigger impact or give each other, ideas on how to grow. And again, we talked earlier about like energy, because it could have been something very different, but now it's 19 years later. I think it's incredible. And I think the need for it doesn't go away. It seems like life just seems to get tougher and tougher, and we got newer problems. And it's just great to know that there is an organization out there very specific to the needs that are out there. So I think it's incredible, and I think you guys are onto something. Obviously, the time has been there, and I'm sure the impact, and you guys have some great stories to share with us today.
And you guys provide homes, right? Or you guys provide locations?
So we've moved into transitional housing, but we don't provide the housing itself. So what we have in the last couple of years, we came across a county grant that gives us funding so that we can connect the women who are transitioning out of residential recovery and still need to stabilize, still need to they're looking to get a job, they're looking to go back to school, or they are needing to get their children back. And so they're not quite ready yet to get their own place. Going back home, sometimes it's not an option. And so what we do is they contact us. We get a referral, we do an assessment, and then we find other existing transitional programs that we can refer them to. Some are for single women, some are with women and children. And so we've been making those connections and helping them through that avenue. And through the funding that we receive, we pay for them to be able to be in transitional housing and living for about 3 months.
I don't know why I got this idea. So third step, right? So what's the explanation for third step, right? Because there's obviously first step, second step, third step. Can you tell us a little bit?
I was definitely wondering
about
about
that?
that. Because in my thoughts when I looked at your website, is there a direct correlation with the third step of the program?
Yes.
Of the big book?
Yes.
Yes, exactly.
And
So
that's what I was leaning to. So why specifically the third step? And I'm very familiar. I'm in recovery, so.
Wonderful. Congratulations.
Oh, thank you.
So we wanted to really connect with the women and for them to immediately know that this was connected to their recovery. And so if you're familiar with the 12 steps, the third step is the decision to turn our will and our life over to the care of God. And so the women immediately know that this is a spiritual focus event, and that is the core of what we do. We want to connect. We want to connect their recovery to the source of strength, of hope that they can have, and give them that connection to continue to believe that they can achieve recovery.
It's one of the, all the steps are important. Redoing mine. And there's a third step prayer that I'm very fond of. I'm pretty sure you two know it. But
Do you
Not
know
by
it?
heart, but do you?
Do you know it by heart?
I knew you were going to put
Oh,
me
wow.
Why put me
He
on
said
the
he was gonna
spot? I don't know
tattoo
it by
it.
heart.
Didn't you tell me?
But
It-
I might at one point. You just want me to get another tattoo.
It's on page 62 of the big book. That's
Yes.
all I know.
So we were just talking about that because he's back in recovery and he talked about the 12 steps, and I'm also a recovered addict, but I've never done the steps. But when you say the third step being turning your will over to God, because to me, even though I haven't done the 12 steps, when I give credit where people say, well, you've been sober, wow, how did you do it? And I always give glory to when Jesus left and he said, I'm going to leave you guys a friend, the Holy Spirit, that's going to be able to allow you to do something that your flesh can get addicted to, or behavior you can get addicted to, but I'm going to leave you a friend, which is that Holy Spirit, which is, like you say, you got to turn it over, you got to totally surrender it, but boy, do you feel when it's there.
And the beautiful thing about this is that we have an amazing director / editor producer that when this airs, she's going to put that third step prayer up there for everybody.
Yes, she will.
Wow.
You know she
She's gonna put it out
will.
there. She's going to put it
That'll
up
be
there
perfect.
because that's how dynamic she is.
I think what's
pretty
important
sure.
about that third step too is it's turning our life and our will over to the care of God. So there's 2 points to it, right? You make that decision to give your life over to God, but then there's the daily turning over, and that's the will. That's the part it's harder actually, is every day saying, I'm going to turn my will over to God. I can't, you can, I'm going to let you, right? That whole idea. And so just as in Christianity, so you get saved, but then there's a whole sanctification process. It's not like now you're saved and poof, you're never going to have a bad thought or bad moment or want to do a bad thing again. It's just not so. And so I appreciated that she used the third step and called the ministry that and used that in the event because we're talking their language. And that's very important. And I think when you get that many women in recovery in one room, and as you know, addiction has no discrimination. So we have every walk of life in that room, every age, race, everything, genders, because people are in their processes, and we accept everybody in, and we're able to meet them where they're at and speak a language that they're familiar with.
Yeah, and I was so when I looked at your website and I did my research, because we do a little bit of research before we bring people on and whatnot, and I totally related to the page and the third step, and I thought it was huge that your program revolves around that, because you're right, it is super important. One of the biggest things, you have to have the spiritual side, and we talk about that. We talk about that the whole time, all the time,
Right.
And you have to have that higher power,
Right.
And without that, you really got nothing.
No, it's true.
So,
and I think we were talking earlier, and I'm not sure if I have this accurate, but I think it's 80% success rate for people that do have some sort of spiritual higher power connection in their recovery journey, that they will succeed much more if they have that part.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, it's great. You guys are doing great things. Yeah.
Well, we really didn't know what we were doing when we first started. We just
Like
knew.
us right now.
Yeah.
We just knew we were onto something to see the women's response, and really the women that attended were as young as 12 years old and already dealing with issues related to addiction, and as mature as maybe 60, 70 years old, coming out of incarceration.
Yeah.
And so we saw that it really crosses so many ages and socioeconomic levels, because that's what addiction does, right?
Absolutely.
It does not discriminate.
No.
Right.
You know, I've met some incredible people in the program that I run,
Mm-hmm.
and you know, I have a sponsor who's a brilliant, successful man.
Mm-hmm.
Most of the people with addiction problems are very,
Very
smart
intelligent.
individuals.
Oh, yeah.
Very
Yes.
intelligent.
Yes.
And but you know, they succumb to a thing, and that's not who they are, right? It's a
No.
problem that a lot of people have.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of, unfortunately, there's an unfortunate side, but there are answers. There's
Yes.
solutions.
Right.
And then addiction, it's more than just substance, alcohol, drugs. There's also
Absolutely.
food, woman,
Right.
porn. There's all of it. Anything could be an addiction.
Right.
Yes.
Um,
Even
and-
phones now.
Yeah. Some of the kids, tablets.
Electronic,
You,
yeah.
you see that.
Cowboy boots.
Okay.
But going to your point, Frank, about people being high functioning
Mm-hmm.
addicts, it's the sense because when you don't heal what you have, you kind of have to mask it, right? You have this mask of like, okay, nobody knows, or you're doing it behind the scenes, and it's because you haven't healed that part of that person, and you kind of like low key hate yourself
Right.
for it, because every time you go back, you don't have happy thoughts. When you are deep down, you go back to your trauma, you go back to that bad moment, you go
Yes.
back to that ongoing negativity, and it's a repeat. And that's why people end up going back to it, because they want to black out.
Yeah.
They don't want to feel any
They want to
pain.
numb it. That's right.
Yeah.
And to that sense, it's hard. And I'm sure you guys have come across many people where it's really hard to say, I have a problem.
Yeah.
Which is step one.
Yeah.
Right? Is
Yeah.
admitting.
The surrender.
Admitting,
Yes.
admitting,
Yes.
yeah.
And how do you guys like approach that, or how do you? Because I feel like with you guys have welcome people in with open arms, no judgment here. It's a no judgment zone. We want to help
Safe
you out.
zone.
It's safe zone. How is it that you point them or lead them? Hey, like you have a problem. Let's fix it.
Well, first of all, most of the women that we are connected to are in residential treatment. So most of them, when they're there, they know they have a problem, and that's why they're there. Sometimes they're there, though, because they're court ordered, and so they're just doing their thing, and they're going to get out, and they haven't really processed themselves. And we have met women outside of residential. We get referrals from other people that say, can you talk to my friend? Can you talk to this person? They're struggling and they need guidance. And it's a process, I'll say that. And I'm evolving, but I used to be very direct. And they'd say, I don't know what I drink. So, well, you're an alcoholic. And they'd be like, what? And they'd be in shock, But what I realize now,
The truth.
Right.
Look you in the eyes.
but the truth is, the alcoholism it's a behavior. It's a symptom of something much deeper, like what you were referring to. It is just an outward behavior, and a big message we try to communicate is, you are not your behaviors. You are not your behaviors. But we need to discover why those behaviors exist so that you can heal and no longer go that route anymore. So we've done a lot of work on our side in educating ourselves and having more understanding of trauma and being trauma informed so that we have a better approach. We love the saying, one TED Talk we heard said that the opposite of addiction is not sobriety. The opposite of addiction is connection.
Oh, my God.
And that is so true, because most people that are struggling with drugs and alcohol, they do it in isolation. And if they don't start that way, they end up that way. So we are really big on wanting to keep connecting them to other resources, connecting them to other people, just bringing them into church communities, just connection. It's so vital and so important to their recovery.
And isolation is like the opposite, right? So it's just you. So there's nobody to keep account to, even though I might have told you, I quit, dude. And then you don't see me for a week. It's like, that I'm, if I'm not out connecting and I'm isolating, then the chances are, right, I've had a relapse or something. And I think that's why in the program, I think they always suggest that you have a sponsor, because there is strength in the accountability part, and right away when the sponsors don't hear from us, and the great thing is, they check up on you, and sometimes if we're not ready and we're getting high, you're going to hear crickets and so on. But the programs, they're so well put together. Certain programs are like a third step is focused for women, but there's like common, we all have like common behaviors, and it's finding where people are at, right, and just telling it's okay, you're here today. We're going to give you the steps because we're all humans and we have similar behavior, right? So these programs are built a certain way because they work. AA's been around for how long? Over 100 years, or I know it's been around forever. And why? Because it works, because they know.
Well, this disease is a very lonely disease, and loneliness will take you out. That's why these programs, like you said, to your point, are so important. They're vital, because you're not alone.
Right.
You're not alone, and these things exist where you could actually go and you could talk and you could share and you could say, but working the steps, working with a sponsor, working with groups like Third Step, you do figure out what that problem was, and that's what you want to do. And walking through the steps, you figure out, okay, why am I so effed up? And they'll help you find out why.
Yeah.
And that's a good and a bad thing, right? Because I remember when I first started, they were like, well, the good news is you're going to discover your feelings. And the bad news is you're going to discover your feelings.
You're going to feel your feelings.
Yeah.
And you don't know when it comes up, because when you start working these steps and you start doing these things, even me as a man, and I shared with Layla the other day, I'm driving home and I'm having a happy day. I'm having a good day, but out of nowhere, I just got emotional. And everything was just catching up to me, and just life and program, because these two know I don't stop. But I keep myself occupied because for me, becoming a better version of myself is so important. And I guess I was just tired and lonely, and it just comes out. But it's okay. It's okay to have the feelings. It's okay to work through them, and it's okay to share.
Even what you're saying is so vital, because today, because you are sober, you're having all these feelings, but you can stop. And in AA, they talk about HALT, right? Am I hungry? Am I angry? Am I tired? Am I lonely? So you can identify. You said, I'm tired, I'm feeling lonely. So you can do that today. Right. And you couldn't do that before. Before, it's like as soon as we feel something, right, we got to run and numb it.
Yep.
Because we don't know how to feel. So a big part is learning how to feel, but not just feel, but know those feelings are not going to go on forever. They will come and they will go.
Yeah.
So being able to ride through them and not let them overwhelm you and become your compass for life. Right. I feel this way, so I got to do this. Or I got to make that decision, or Yeah. So I think that's so cool that you can do that.
No, just like like they say, the releasing of energy, because all it's trauma that you probably suppress. You drink or you get high, and then one day you want to be you want to get sober because you've hit rock bottom, right? And you're like, I don't want to be like this anymore, right? And the recovery is very, very difficult, especially when you start to feel those things, because a lot of people will give up right there. Things get a little hard, a lot of people relapse. A lot of people will give up. But if somebody's really working their program, like you said, and they're in surrender, their chances of success and making it through another day, go way, it's higher. But therapy, recovery, how they say they peel back the onion, and you ask that question where all of a sudden it's like, I don't want to talk about that. And it's like, okay, well, we don't have to talk about that today, but obviously when you're ready, and then you feel, because you have it all right here, right? You have it all put, and then you start letting it come out. But they say if you let it come out, and certain things, once you say them out loud, it's almost like poison's coming out of you or something, and you feel this relief, and you're like, oh, shit, I feel better. Especially if the person you're sharing with is going to tell you, like, it's okay. Like you said, your past isn't who you are today. Let's go say sorry, or let's address it. And little by little, it's like, because we're energy, and you let it out. Or just like when people talk, let me check your chakra. Oh, you got something stuck right here. I believe there's some truth to those things. It's just getting somebody that can really, talk you through it. And that's why sometimes we do need a professional to help us, a doctor, a therapist.
Or someone that went through it.
Yes.
So just to give you an idea about a Third Step event, we've evolved, and we have actually created a very, what I call as upscale luncheon for the women. And so as Valerie said, we have about close to 600 women that respond. We reach about anywhere between 35 to 40 recovery programs throughout Los Angeles County and Orange County and surrounding areas. And they just tell us, expect 20 women from our program, expect 15 from this program. And so we just start making all the arrangements for them. And it's upscale in that it's linen tablecloths, it's linen napkins, it's a goblet, it's a hot meal. Wow. And we really want the women to feel special. We want them to forget about their past. We want them to be in the moment and just to feel accepted,
deserving,
to feel valued. And we do everything that we can so that they can just feel they're in an elegant place and that they are deserving of all of this elegance. And we have volunteers, 2 women at each table to whatever their need is, they provide them with the coffee or the punch or whatever it is that they need. We make sure that they have their chocolate cake because that's super important.
Yeah, is that their favorite?
That's usually their favorite.
Chocolate and coffee. Ooh.
Right.
Get you going.
And so one of the things that has also evolved is because they would come so early to our event, we didn't want them standing outside in the hot sun. We now have what we call a pre-party, a welcome party. It's that and a resource fair where all the women get to go to different booths. They have photo booths, they have makeup touch-up booths, they have jewelry makeup. They can make their jewelries, their bracelets, craft booth, and other resources that they can also have that come from the community. Wow. And so it's a resource fair in the morning, and then when the lunchtime comes, then we usher them over to, if you could imagine, a big ballroom. And lively music is going on for the women. They fully engage, they clap, they enjoy it. And then we have inspirational testimonials about recovery. Other women, many of the women that volunteer have also come through recovery, so they have a point of connection.
So like a success story. They get to actually meet someone that went through it. And wow.
And usually our keynote speaker has a powerful story that is very compelling, and the women respond to the message and to make the decision to turn their life over.
A lot of people don't understand. You come to a certain point where you really hit the rock bottom.
Yes.
And they don't know how hard it is to get out of there. It takes everything you got, everything and then some. And then you show up to these places broken.
Yes.
Broken. And you talk about this event and it's like, wow, because for one day, you forget about that and you're acknowledged and you're treated like a person, which you are, because that doesn't define you. And that's really one of the points that I think you guys are getting across. It's like, hey, you're not that. You're so much more.
And everything we do is very intentional. So the whole resource fair and the welcome party, we also observed that they come into the banquet relaxed. They've already been there and they've been enjoying music and they've been doing stuff. So by the time they come into the banquet room, they're relaxed, because prior to that, when they were waiting, they'd come in a little keyed up because, as you say, they're working through their stuff. Some of them just got into the program maybe that week. And so now they're like, where are you taking me? And they show up and they're a little keyed up. They don't trust. And so we understand that. And so they come in and even being trauma informed now, they used to come in and we'd grab them and want to hug them right away and stuff. And they get a little freaked out. So now we respect that boundary. We know, don't impose that on them. Be respectful. Ask first and things like that. So we've come a long way in that. But I love that we have evolved and that we have created that space in the morning so that they come in and they're just in a better disposition.
So how is it that you did become, let's call it, more emotionally intelligent to women that come from trauma? Did you go through certain training? I mean, is there some professional training that you guys took?
We were exposed to a training called TBRI, which is Trust-Based Relational Intervention. And it came out of Texas Christian University, where they did a lot of research on children that had come from adversity. So in that, they have found the effects of trauma on the brain and how it impacts adults and relationships, especially relational trauma. So many of the women that we serve, they have come from relational trauma. So
does that mean like when your husband beats you, or
it could a variety of things, meaning just kind of attachment. It's based on attachment theory and how you were parented really in those formative years and how that impacted your brain and your ability to live in fight, flight, or freeze, right? The survival brain, the lower part of the brain, as opposed to the upper part, the executive brain. And when we've been raised in a lot of adversity and that has not healed, and you're going to be in fight, flight, or freeze almost all the time. You're in survival mode. And most of the women we have met have been in that mode, and they need to heal. And it takes, when you have relational trauma, it is the only part of the brain, the only organ that requires other person to heal that part of you.
Interesting.
So the only organ in the body that requires another human being for it to heal when there's been relational trauma. So it's a process, and we offer support groups on Zoom, and we've been taking them into the recovery homes now too. Two other board members and myself went through a training to get certified as, they call it, a TBRI practitioner. So we're learning. We're an ongoing learning, and nobody is using it with people in recovery really. So we're pioneers on this. They're using it more with children that are in foster care and the parents, of which a lot of the women we serve also, they have children that are in foster care and they're trying to obtain them back. So we're trying to show them a path, a better way of parenting, and understand themselves and why they parented the way they did, why they lost their children, and why they went to an addiction. Let's investigate the why so that we can heal. So it's been impactful, so impactful, the whole workshop we do and we present.
So I heard you say like the events that you have could be like up to 600 women. Mm-hmm. So how do you meet people where they are, and how is it that you get down to like the one-on-one?
Well, a table of 10, 2 women that are volunteers are there with them, and so each volunteer focuses on 4. And the other volunteer focuses on 4. And so they develop the conversation, they tell their story, they hear the lady's story. And so this is what we call like the big net, right? Because so many women come from all over. They do get to know their hostess pretty generally well. But from this event, based on what Valverie has talked about TBRI, we also now offer weekly support groups through Zoom. And so we offer this to all the recovery homes. They're welcome to Zoom in. And so we've gone through several sessions of TBRI, attachment courses, and other courses related to recovery, related to other topics that are important for them. And we offer this generally every Tuesday consistently. We just take a few breaks throughout the year so that the women have somewhere to connect. Mm-hmm. And that is really where we get to know them on a more personal level. And so we have sometimes up to 50, 60 women that are Zooming in.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. And I think, and when we go in the homes and we take the workshop in the home there too, and as they're getting ready to exit, they'll ask for our information. They'll give us their number so that we can stay in touch with them. So we've stayed in touch with quite a few of them on an individual basis between all of the board members. We each probably have a few that we're able to stay in contact with. And a lot of them come back. Mm-hmm. And they volunteer at Third Step.
That's
so
the best
there's
part.
The full circle.
Full circle.
And that's what my leading point is. I wanted to see if you guys could share maybe a couple of testimonials of your success stories of the women that are still serving.
Mm-hmm. One quick story that came to mind, and then I'll go into a success story, just to give you an idea of how dynamic the event is. We had one girl who came who had just been released from jail. And so she went to the program where she was assigned to. She didn't want to go to the event. They told her, we're all going to go to this event, and she didn't want to go. But when she was in jail, she was reading this book that she really connected with, and she says, I wanted to steal it. She says, I better not. And so she left it there. So she comes to the event. Lo and behold, the author of that book is our speaker.
What?
Yes.
Wow.
And so she had donated 75 books that we were able to raffle off to the women at the table. She gets the book. I mean, what are the chances of that, right?
There's a spirit working there.
So she gets the
Or
book.
it was rigged.
We introduce her. We introduce her to the speaker. The speaker prays with her, signs her book personally, and they take a picture. And so, we've lost contact with that one person, but that impact is life-lasting, right?
Yeah.
That was God. That was
Yeah.
God working.
It's so amazing. And we have so many
Beautiful.
stories similar to that.
And I'm assuming that the story, the book, it was based on recovery or
It was her
Yeah.
story.
Yeah. It's her personal story. Do you want to talk about one of our girls?
Sure. I mean, you got to hear the testimony, and she's one of our shining stars. Her name is Desiree, and she came to our event when she was in program, and then left and continued to do her journey of sobriety and recovery and all the things. And 9 years after she came out of her program and had been to our event, she came to one of our trainings to be a volunteer at our event. And she told Maria, she said, I was an attendee, and now I want to be a volunteer. It was 9 years ago, I was at your event, and we were just thrilled. And we've stayed. She's been on part of our volunteer base and been involved and continued, got reunified with her children that she had lost custody of. Both her older children are grads of USC, and one's a psychologist. I forget what the other one. They're both professionals.
Graphic
both
designer. Yeah.
Graphic designer. Done well. Her younger child that she had with her through recovery and kept her because she stayed sober, she's like an all-state champion wrestler, and she's a good student, just a thriving individual. And so is Desiree. She's just doing amazing things. She went on to get educated in construction management. I think she's a project manager now at a construction company. And so we had her come and share at our fundraiser, and just is full of life, full of joy, and all about just paying it forward. So we appreciate her.
And if I recall, she was homeless and pregnant,
Yes,
right?
yes.
Oh, wow.
And
Then went into program.
And she told everybody, I made a lot of mistakes. I fell back, went back up. I think there was a moment that she was stealing, right? Or she was living in houses. She would break into houses because she was homeless.
Wow.
So she, I don't remember. I think she got caught or someone called.
I think they court ordered her to a program that was for women and children. She hadn't lost her child.
Going back or staying on the subject of construction, because she is now in the construction world. We did an episode not so long ago. It was revolving around mental health, and we ran some stats at the end of that. And do you too see people walk in from the related industry? Has there been an increase of women in construction that are fighting, the battle and going in? Is that a thing that's happening, or do you?
We don't really ask them too many questions about, where they've come from until we get to know them a little bit more intimately. But what we do know is the data, and the data shows that those who are in construction, because I think the stressors of the career is high, that addiction is also high. And so that we have been able to learn that, and now also because Valverie and her family are in the construction field, we've been able to have more connections with those who are in the world of construction, and so they relate to not only issues related to alcohol and drug addiction, but also compassion and the desire to give back and help. And that's been beautiful to see.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things, right? When you do heal in the journey, you have to give it back. And I think once you get to that point, you want to give it back.
Yes.
You want to be of service. You want to help. Because you can't just grab that gift and just keep it to yourself. You gotta give it to somebody else.
Well, even the 12 step says we want to carry the message, right? So that's part of the giving back.
Yeah. No, I think it's an amazing thing what you're doing, because I've always thought about certain programs, and I feel sometimes they're outdated. and you introducing new methodology and new things into it and able to assist, I think that's needed across the board. You know, because we stick to the tried and true methods, but we've advanced so much as a you know, it's in society and in learning, and there's got to be more, right? There's got to be more things that will allow you to get in tune, to really help, to really. And sometimes I feel like certain programs are a little outdated, and there's got to be more. So I think what you guys are doing is phenomenal.
Yeah, I mean, it goes back to where the problems stem, and just like as you mentioned, many of these young these ladies have suffered trauma in their childhood. I mean, I could only imagine being a 3-year-old and going through some type of sexual trauma, or younger, because now there's horrific stories of that, and forming that fear and anxiety, and then if it goes repeatedly. And you just go with a brain that's developed that way, and you react a certain way. So you either become aggressive or you become super shy and just locked out, and carry that on to living like that. And then with when it comes to sexual trauma, it's usually a cycle. It's within the family. So it happens to one person and it continues on. And if you don't break it, come out of it, it really hurts you.
Absolutely. And even, not even it does happen as children, but sometimes what happens is when they get into addiction, now they're in a vulnerable place, in a vulnerable state. So we've heard a lot of very traumatic stories of women that have gotten a boyfriend who's in a gang, and then, they've gotten high with them and they started getting addicted. And then before you know it, they were the party favor at the party, so there's a lot of just so many traumatic stories. Yes, the childhood things did happen, but there was no healing. There was no safe person. There was nobody to help. So then it carried on with them into, and quite frankly, I hear these stories sometimes and I get it. I get why they want to numb out, it makes sense to me. But of course, we want to encourage them that there is a way of escape, and you can find your healing, and it will start with the first step, and then we'll get to the third step, and it doesn't stop there. There's 7 more steps after that, but the third step is so pivotal, so that you have that resource of a higher power to go with you into the 4th step, into the inventory, into the amends, all these things that are very difficult, that are relational, and that's where a lot of this trauma stems. So we focus on that, not because we think it ends there, but we know that's the best beginning to keep going.
No, it really is. And the way they're structured, it one prepares you for the other. And I mean, some people don't know, but you find out a lot of things about yourself, a lot of things, things that you didn't even know. Your character defects. Like, what do you mean I have these? You're crazy. I don't have these defects. I'm not jealous as you are.
I'm here to tell you, yes, you are.
But it's okay.
Yes.
It's okay to know where you stand, who you are, and then you work on it.
And many times what we have come across too is a lot of the women, they don't even know those things were traumatic. They don't. They just think that was normal, and so it's very earth-shattering to them. We give them the ACEs test, the Adverse Childhood test, and they've never heard of it, and then they're just blown away when they take that test. They just can't believe that they've had that much trauma. But it makes sense to them. It makes sense to them. So it's almost like the light bulb goes on.
Going back to the full circle of that prayer, I think I mentioned that I had forgotten about it. And a couple years later, I was feeling tired. I was feeling like, I can't do this anymore. Why did I even think that this might be a good idea? And I literally remember coming home from an event and just feeling very discouraged, and going up the stairs and had my shoes in my hand. And the Holy Spirit reminded me of that prayer. He said, this is why you prayed. And this is an answer to your prayer. And so that was, because I hadn't remembered. I didn't remember having said that. And so this is more than an organization. This is our cause. This is our mission, that I feel what I was created to do, and to be thankfully, I don't have a story of addiction, but we all have stories of trauma. We all have stories of brokenness.
Yeah.
We all have stories of needing restoration, needing to connect, and needing to have the understanding that there is a God who loves us.
That just even makes it more special, because not even having that experience yourself and then the willingness to help other people speaks volumes of your character and who you are. So I commend you for that. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was actually one of my questions I wanted to ask you. You said you were in the social services industry. Was there a personal story for that, or was it you just felt the need to go on? Because you have to have a really big heart. Because you said you were 20-something years in the industry.
Yes, actually, I retired after 36 years in the field of social work. Yes, in the sense that we lived in the barrio. My mom was always in somebody's home, helping them, wanting to provide support. Sometimes we would, our dishes would be missing, and I'm like, "What's going on?" She says, "I gave them to somebody else. We're going to get new ones." And so she was always giving things, away. And so I just felt, when I thought about a career, I felt like that was what resonated with my spirit, and I was, when you're in high school and you're looking through all these possible things, there were two things: either being a teacher or being a social worker. And I said, oh, it's going to be too many years of college to go to be a teacher. Little did I know that it would require quite a bit of education as well. But that's where the strings to my heart led me towards, and particularly helping families to be restored with their children. And so that had been my public child welfare. It was my focus. And then I went into the educational field and helping young, new social workers that wanted to come into the field to really connect their heart with their desire, their career desire, so that they had good motives for the work that they were going to be doing.
I mean, that's tough because I went to college for psychology, and actually social services was one of the options. But I was 22 years old and I never really had a real job. I was front desk, LA Fitness. And I was just knew I wasn't mature enough, because I knew going into that I was going to take a lot of the stories back home. Because, going through that, helping out families that have gone through so much bad stuff. And then returning the child back home, knowing it's not safe there. I knew mentally, I was like, I'm not strong enough to do that. So how did you go through all of that?
Well, it's part of the education, right? That's part of what you train to do, and you get good mentors that help you through the tough stuff. But you focus on where the need is, and the children sometimes do need to be separated for a period of time, but their heart is always towards their parents. And if we strengthen the parents, and we say also with our women in recovery, if we provide restoration and recovery to the mamas, it's the best thing we could do for their children. And so that has always been my approach to the field of social work, that there's pain, we know there's been injury, and our work is to restore.
The word restoration, I have a sister-in-law. She sends me a prayer every morning. And this morning it was talking about how God is the king of restoration, and how he can take the worst situation, the darkest moment, and restore it to something more beautiful than before. For myself, losing my son, I thought it was really over, and I didn't know what the restoration was going to look like. But in the beginning, it was, there's no hope. When it just happens, and so when I read it this morning, because here I am 5 years later, I'm thinking to myself, you can restore anything, Lord, But then when I think about women, because our children are our children. But the thing about addiction is, man, we won't care about a darn thing. I mean, again, being an addict too, it's like you don't care about anything, and it's a horrible place to be. But again, like Frank says, it doesn't define you. It's like where you're at. You're in the dark. You're an addict. and you know all this horrible stuff is going around, is going on around you, but shit, you still just want to get high. But when you reach that rock bottom, whatever, there's no more money, or you're out doing things you never thought you'd do, and then you start getting a little bit sober, and it's hard when you've done all that damage. And it's so hard to move. But that's when the good Lord comes in and says, we're, just don't give up, we're gonna do it. And the stories are just so full of hope, and sometimes your guest speakers, I'm sure, are the ones that had come from the worst situation, right? Come from the worst. So their stories are the biggest struggles, and that's why I think they also do the biggest impact. To have somebody sitting there where they're at right now thinking nobody here is worse than me, and then they hear a story like that and be like, damn, I'm gonna be all right. I'm gonna be okay. So I think all these programs I love. I didn't know about Third Step Ministry until we went to the NAWIC event, that Rooftop Nice NAWIC event. NAWIC is the National Association of Women in Construction, which is a national organization that impacts women in construction, no matter what level they are in their career. They're always outreaching, trying to bring more women into the industry. And I love the connection because, hey, when we come out of recovery, we need to work. So belonging to those organizations and making those connections and taking somebody that maybe doesn't have a job and then seeing them as a project manager.
Right.
Those connections, that's another big word, right? Connecting. And it can always take us, to the next level. So again, shout out to Dawn Davis. We love her very much. And that's how I actually met Valverie. Maria, I'm sure you were there.
I was there.
There's so many people there, so many things going on. And I'm sure through NAWIC, you guys have probably been able to connect women, to get into the first steps of having a great job, because we need more women in construction, that's for sure.
Well, we definitely want to move there. To be honest, that was my first introduction to NAWIC. I had kind of heard about it through my husband. They had supported other events that NAWIC had done. And he said, you need to go to this. You need to get involved. You need to go to this. So Dawn had called and said, Valverie, we're doing this Christmas party and we like to give to some sort of organization, do something charitable, and we'd like to do it for Third Step. What do you think? What can we give? She wanted to do toys, but I said, what we have learned, that toys are not the greatest need because they do get a lot of toys from other resources. I said, the women, though, they need stuff. They need hygiene things, brand new soaps and body wash and all that stuff. She said, oh, okay, let me get back to you. So she called back and said, okay, we're going to do it. So you and Maria have to come and pick the stuff up at our event. All right, we're going. And we were so thrilled to have gone and met you and Rocio and so many others. And as a result, actually, of that particular event, when we went to distribute all the hygiene items, which was an abundance, Dawn was even blown away. She says, Valverie, take a picture of all that when you get home. It was, my whole dining room table was filled and the floor, it was just full. And we took it to a reentry program that houses about 90 women. And so we took it there, and one of the women from NAWIC came also, and she was able to talk to one of the residents and tell them about construction and how they could get involved, because this particular woman had gone to welding school. So I said, well, Dawn's really close by. And we were able to make... And
Dawn's a welder.
Yes, she is. And it gave this woman so much hope. You just saw her face light up and, okay, somebody really has connections for me here. And we want to do more of that, for the women, and take some of the NAWIC women in and to talk to them and let them know this is an option for you. This is an opportunity for you to have a job and to provide for your kids. So we're excited.
And it's such an opportunity to take somebody and teach them a skill, right? Where instead of 4 years of college and coming out with debt, you could be in a union, and 4 years later you're driving around your new car and maybe a house. So it's a really good opportunity that when we come out of recovery, we go through a lot, especially having money is no fun. So if there's a component there where let's get through these steps, let's get you sober, and then we're going to put you to work. And it really, again, talk about building your confidence and giving yourself value and finding yourself in a really good place.
Yeah, I agree.
Well, I mean, I don't know, but if the Third Step gets back involved with NAWIC, I might consider sponsoring again.
Oh, here we go. That's right.
Yeah.
Yes.
You could
Yeah.
just sponsor them directly. They have tons of events.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But if not,
Don't you
sorry.
guys have an upcoming event in September, October?
That's our big luncheon that we're going
Yeah.
to have on September 27th.
Okay.
And we need men to help us with, there's
Serving
a
the
lot
food?
of,
We love men.
Yeah.
there,
Not for nothing, but Lila and Chris have had my barbecue, so
Yes.
Oh.
He can
That's-
cook.
well, we need a
Salsa
lot
and
of,
everything.
We need man muscle.
to help us unload the trucks, reload the trucks, set
You
up,
got
tear
Two
down.
volunteers in the room.
Awesome,
Yeah.
awesome.
They're both from
Yes.
the gym.
Awesome.
more than
Great,
happy.
great.
Yeah. And actually, the response from the NAWIC was just so
Yes.
incredible. I've met with a few of the women now, and they're saying, "How can our company get involved? What do you need? What can we do?" And we're blessed. And then the golf tournament, of course, and so many contractors and suppliers and people all over that are affiliated with our business just support it, and we're so excited about that, because they just love it, and they buy in, and they like what we're doing. They want to be a part of it. So that's been a tremendous blessing.
Another really quick story that I think you'll enjoy listening about. This young girl, we actually had her share her testimony at one of our events. She had lost her mother when she was very young. She was about 10 years old, and was passed around from family member to family member. And fast forward, she ended up living in a tent over by the Angel Stadium, the tent cities that were setting up over there. She was living there, drug addict, had lost 3 of her children to her addiction, and she was pregnant with her baby, and was able to get into a program. And so through her program, she was able to recover from her addiction. She was restored to her children. There was one child that was adopted, and so that's something that she still grieves. But she was restored to 3 of her children. Fast forward, she is now applying to get into law school,
Oh
Wow.
my goodness.
if you can imagine.
There's
that.
so many.
Yeah,
There's so,
so
many
many
stories.
stories.
I mean,
Yes.
it's.
Yes.
I mean, they're just all coming into my
Right.
mind right now.
Well, for our audience listening, first question, let's say if there's someone out there that's struggling with addiction and is saying, hey, I need help, where can they reach out to Third Step, or would it be a different program saying like, I'm just seeking help for myself?
She can definitely contact our website. Our website is thirdstepministry.org, and we would refer. We would refer to a program, whatever program seems to be most appropriate. So, we're always happy to give referrals.
Awesome.
And sometimes it's not a program. Sometimes they just need the support and the connection to others in recovery. So we'll connect them to other meetings that we are familiar with, faith-based meetings, and even regular AA meetings, but where we know people that go there and they're good meetings and they're healthy, and so we can also provide that.
And then second, for our viewers listening who want to participate and take part of the program, where can they reach you guys?
Same, thirdstepministry.org.
Where can they write the checks to?
That's right.
Third Step Ministry.
And there's
What's
a PO
the
box.
Zelle? What's
And
the
we do
Zelle?
have
What's
a
the Venmo?
donate button.
What's
Yeah, we have a donate button on the website. So
Yeah. Hey, you guys heard that? Donate.
Yeah. One of the questions that was asked of us is what's next for Third Step, and one of the things that we are hoping to be able to do is to establish our resource center that
Okay.
is family focused, and we're also able to provide a lot of our own resources to women. Something also similar to a sober living program as well is something we would love to be able to do because we see the need. And so those are some of the things we're looking forward to. We'd like to be able to develop enough base so that we can launch those kinds of things, as well as have full-time employees. We don't have any.
No.
Everything is voluntary. Everything that we do, everyone is voluntary. There are a few that we pay, a little bit of money to
Very little.
do our website, to do different aspects, to do our TBRI training, those kinds of things. But we'd love to be able to bring on an admin.
Yeah.
Do you guys have, let's say someone's out there is interested and is looking for a job, would you guys be able to take someone in right now?
No.
We can't afford them
Okay.
right now, but
A
that's
volunteer basis,
Yeah,
yes.
on a volunteer basis,
Any
absolutely.
volunteers out
Any
there?
volunteers?
It's the
Yes.
best
Yeah.
recovery group for
Yeah.
women. So
Right.
if you have extra time and you've got administrative skills, thirdstepministry.org, please reach out.
Yes.
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you.
I was actually gonna quit this show today because Lila doesn't want to pay me, but after having you two on, I'm gonna stay.
So
Wow,
thank
that's
you
great.
guys for coming. This was incredible. I really hope, for our listeners, if you know somebody, please reach out. This is something where the supernatural can happen because it is third step. So it's not just human, it's superhuman.
Well, thank you for having
Thank
us.
you.
We appreciate the opportunity.